Indeed, there's a new Commission, but the direction is largely set by the President of the Commission. And so the writing is on the wall, so to speak, about this direction. And it's very clear that it's going to be, first of all, like the political guidelines have stated, Europe first. So Europe's interests are going to be put first and foremost, even in international cooperation and in foreign policy. It's quite normal in foreign policy, of course, for a country's or a bloc's interests to be put first. But this is also now going to be the case in international cooperation. And that means then that the EU will be trying to secure its economic interests predominantly. It is going into an ultra-competitive mode, so it's competing with various rivals around the world, China being one. And in our opinion, in CONCORD's opinion, this actually is not necessarily the right way forward. No doubt it's too soon to say. Mr. Sikala doesn't have a development background, but it's not rare for somebody to be appointed to as Commissioner for International Partnerships, which is responsible for international cooperation, and for them not to have a so-called development background. So that's not what concerns me the most. From what our Czech platform have told us, he's a conscientious man, he's one who will, make sure he understands the dossier very well, he's one who works with a number of different stakeholders. So I think it's perhaps less the appointment that's of concern and more the brief that he has been given that is of concern to us right now. And again, this is all around EU using official development assistance, so that's the international cooperation money, for the EU's own interests. This we're very worried about. This is not what it's there for. This is not why taxpayers are supporting international cooperation. They support it for solidarity reasons, not so that it comes full circle and promotes the EU's interests. So that's my first concern. My second concern is that it's quite possible that a not sufficient consultation will be held with a number of stakeholders. So in the so-called mission letter that Mr. Sikala was given by the President of the Commission, civil society wasn't even mentioned as one of the stakeholders that he needs to be working with. And so that, of course, is of concern to us. But that's down to Mr. Sikala to decide whom he speaks to. So we're still hopeful on that front. When there is a move to the right, the focus becomes more on security issues, on stopping migration, and this we have definitely seen across Europe. Now, of course, we're seeing that reflected more in the European Parliament as well, where, of course, the far-right tendencies have now converged, if you like. But there is still a predominance of the centre-left and the centre-right. So, and alliances are quite fluid in the European Parliament, so we'll have to see how this plays out over the coming 5 years. In principle, it does mean that the Parliament would likely align with President Ursula von der Leyen's Europe First kind of direction. They would, the further right would support that. The Parliament doesn't per se have a lot to do with development cooperation, but they do have a big say over the EU's budget. And we know that in this coming period, the EU is going to negotiate its next 7-year budget. And so that's where our concerns lie, largely because countries are cutting back across Europe on the amount of money that they're willing to be spending in partner countries. It's not as simple as just cutting budgets everywhere, actually. Quite interestingly, and for example, our Swedish platform just was writing to me about this the other day, it's not so much just cutting budgets, it's more repurposing the money. So this goes back to what I was saying earlier on around, for example, it being used to control migration. And so they're thinking around creating these trust funds again, where they give money to countries like they did with Turkey, where countries then stop people from migrating to Europe. This is going to come very much up on the agenda, I think, of the EU again. It's bubbling away there, right just underneath the surface already, and I think this is going to come out over the coming few years even more strongly, as it did back in 2015, 2016 time. So this will be one of the things that's going to be an issue for us. because obviously we would like more safe and legal routes for migration, and we think that the EU needs to have a longer-term perspective on many of its policies, rather than this short-term perspective where we just need to keep them out. It's not necessarily perhaps the best way forward, even for Europe's sake, in terms of making sure that we have, the skills we need, the population that we need to be doing all the various different jobs that we have. We can benefit a lot, same as we can then support and help other people by allowing legal migration. So this is just one of the things where the money may get repurposed. So the actual MFF, the budget if you like, is going to be split up between more things than it was before. And so there is a risk that there could be less money then for international cooperation.